By reducing the size of government, it frees the economy, which benefits the people. And as they begin to see that, they will become more and more receptive to our ultimate goal, and that's to start a new country that has no bureaucratic regulations whatsoever.
We just had one of the most controversial elections ever. One side says we're going to get 4 years of tyranny. The other side says we're going to get 4 years of freedom. Well, what is it?
Okay, so the really good thing to focus on is the reduction of the federal bureaucracy. That says it all. Because when we downsize our government, that means more money in the pocket of the people, more freedom, less regulations, which means more productivity, which means everything's going to improve for the people. So I'm quite adept at looking through illusions. I know a lot of my readers, a lot of people out there, my readers included, are going to maybe feel a little jolt when I talk, because up until now I've refused to talk about anything about the election. But I do want to say this: I feel the next 4 years are going to be very good for the American people. Seeing through all the illusions on both sides, I think the real giveaway is what Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy plan to do to reduce the size of the bureaucratic state that has really held back America, has really held back the people, and it's time to release freedom in this country. And I feel that that is the sign. I'm not talking about Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. I'm talking about Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. That's where the real power, the real freedom's going to come from. In fact, I feel that the next 4 years are going to be extremely prosperous for the American people. Now, I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear because illusions have captivated the American populace. Illusions on one side, illusions on the other side. But the act of reducing the size of government is going to be the great hallmark of this year and the next 4 years of freedom.
And so that's with that's with Doge.
Right,
The
with
Department
Doge.
of
Yes, not the meme
Efficiency.
coin, but what is it? Department of
Government Efficiency. DOGE, Doge.
Yeah.
Department of Government Efficiency.
Yes.
Do you have Doge coin?
I don't, but some of my close family members do.
Yeah, I know Marco.
Yeah,
Marco's up
Marco.
on Doge.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at it as basically, what are the actions that each one of them are going to take? One of them's going to, it seemed like one was going to increase the size of the government versus another one which is going to reduce the size of the government.
Yeah, and we can jump by the main players here. We can jump by Kamala, we can jump by Donald Trump, and we can get down to the real point here is Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. They're going to cut the government spending, Elon said, by $2 trillion a year. Do you realize what that does? First of all, that balances the budget. And that begins to, with the growth of the economy that's going to be a result of that, it's going to start getting rid of our debt, which is $36 trillion.
Do you think that actually can be done?
Under these circumstances, I think it has a shot. We will set the precedent of cutting the government down, setting free the economy, and the growth of the economy is where we can actually pay off the debt. So Elon was asked how much he could cut out of the annual budget, and he answered, I think $2 trillion.
That's insane.
I know.
Do you think he could actually do it? I mean, imagine the blowback that he's going to get from Democrats and Republicans. I mean, a lot of them are just getting money and it's lining their pockets. Do you think they're going to accept that?
Well, realize the government is just full of takers, right? Bureaucrats, politicians. So he's going to meet a lot of resistance. There's no doubt about that. But he's a strong man. He's got Vivek with him. Now it's an official department of the U.S. government. So, I mean, I think he really could pull it off. It's a very real possibility. Now, what this means is something I've brought up before. This means a rapid growth of our economy. This is why it's going to be so good for the people. Even those who were not Trump supporters, even people who have been caught up in the illusions out there on both sides of the aisle, they will see that the real benefit of all of this is going to be this reducing the government waste and bureaucratic regulations that just hold businesses, hold the economy back. And we've had that analogy to the computer revolution in the late 20th century, where the government really couldn't get a handle on regulating that. So the cost of computer power, the cost of computer power dropped over 1,000-fold. Now, imagine if that happened to the overall economy. Now, it may not drop 1,000-fold, but it's going to drop and drop and drop very dramatically because of a coming great technological revolution. We had a computer revolution in the late 20th century. Now, in the 21st century, we're going to have a great technological revolution. It's going to start with what Elon and Vivek are planning to do. And that is what I call phase one, or step one. And it will get our country, get the people, the populace, understanding, seeing through illusions, and beginning to understand that by reducing the size of government, that it frees the economy, which benefits the people. And as they begin to see that, they will become more and more receptive to our ultimate goal, and that's to start a new country that has no bureaucratic regulations whatsoever. That everything is based on a mutual value exchange. If someone's screwing up or someone's hurting something, they'll go out of business quickly because your wallet does the voting, not political campaigns that cast all these illusions that have confused the American populace for the past couple of years. Instead, your wallet, your dollars are going to do the voting. How? They're going to be voting for the service that brings the most value to the people. So that big bloat never happens. That's going to be the next huge leap after this 4 years. Maybe the American people will be ready for this, ready for Immortalis, and we could have a mass exodus into Immortalis. That's yet to be seen, but this is our plan.
So are you saying people need to see it first and then to like actually experience what that means for them to be able to accept Immortalis?
I think a lot of people, because we've been so, our brains have actually been so polluted with these illusions that are really tough. It's just too much for the average person to cut through and see through. You know, all my life I've been able to cut through. It's like my superpower. I've been able to see through these illusions, and it links back to my philosophical grounding under Dr. Frank R. Wallace, who had developed the Neotech philosophy, which grew out of Ayn Rand's objectivism. So it's made it very easy for me to cut through the illusions to what is, to see what is. But so many people, they're dealing with these master, what we call neo-cheaters, right? Master neo-cheaters out there who are crafting these illusions to give themselves good appearances to the average people out there, to average good people, with sound good, compassionate sounding illusions that the people believe in. But in the end, it's toll booth compassion, because people are paying for that and paying big. And it's reducing the productivity of the economy, and it's hurting everyone. But we're going to cut through this with Vivek and Elon over the next 4 years. Let's see where that brings us. It could bring us to the launching pad of Immortalis on a wide scale, I'm talking, because we have our people who really understand what we're doing. We have a couple of million of those people, but we don't have the masses, the complete masses. This next 4 years could be very beneficial in helping people see through these embedded illusions, this pollution in their brain that have been put there by these crafty, smart, white-collar hoax, career politicians, and regulatory bureaucrats. As we see what happens, we see the action and the response, the stimulus response. We see that over the next 4 years, and the general population could wake up to the fact the more we reduce these smooth talkers up there in government, the more prosperous we become. That opens the door what I call phase 2 or step 2, which is the leap from a freed America, somewhat freed America, to a purely free Immortalis.
And for the viewers, what is Immortalis?
Immortalis is a new country that I've started. We started as a network state, a digital country. Our goal is in 10 years to actually have a land-based country where people can move to escape and get away from the political weight that people experience in their countries around the world, into a country where there's no political weight whatsoever. In fact, you won't have politics. You'll have basically
No politics.
no politics. You have businesses it's a mutual value exchange dynamic. Even the government itself is a service. It's a protection service. It's a protection-only government. In fact, we'll just call it government. It'll actually be a service, a paid-for service, a voluntarily paid service. Now, you know why it's voluntarily paid, which people think that would never work, but I'm going to tell you how it will work.
How?
It's voluntary. Well, first, it's voluntary because of the Constitution. We have a Constitution that removes the scourge of mankind, initiatory force, in all government and all society.
Meaning, like, you can't force somebody to pay and support the government.
That's a form of initiatory force. Bureaucratic regulations are, for the most part, initiatory force for some political agenda. We can get more into that over time for the people to understand this, but basically what we're talking about is removing all forms of initiatory force. So therefore, you can't force people to pay their taxes.
Whoa. Okay.
So how's that going to work?
Yeah. How's that?
Well, let me tell you how. If you are in a country where there's pure freedom, remember I told you about the computer revolution and the information revolution in the late 20th century, where you could put in your pocket a smartphone with more computing power than only the billion-dollar Fortune 500 companies could afford in the late 20th century.
Right.
Okay, so that's a result of freedom. Now, spread that across the entire industrial landscape through a great technological revolution. What's going to happen is prices are going to drop and drop and drop, making you wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. And more or less, every person in Immortalis is going to live like a multi-millionaire. So when they immigrate to Immortalis, and suddenly they're living like a multi-millionaire, well, don't you think they're going to want to keep what made them rich?
Yeah.
So they're going to say, what do you need? 10%? Here you go. It's going to be a tithe, probably a 10% tithe. And that tithe goes to, we'll call it government, but it's protection service, where they form the military, they form the police forces, they form the courts, the judges. You're going to have, the whole judicial system based on protecting the prime law. The prime law removes all initiatory force throughout all society and all, air quotes, government.
So you're telling me you're starting a digital country with no taxes, no politicians, and no government.
Yes.
Sign me up.
And we're not only starting a digital country, but the plan is this. Not only will you live like a multimillionaire in Immortalis, but your health is going to go to entirely new levels. Do you want to try to take a guess as to why that's going to happen? We're going to surpass the health in America, in Europe, in Asia very quickly. You want to take a gander?
How so?
Well,
I mean, I know RFK Jr. now in the U.S. is trying to do something like that.
Well, what has kept Americans from living like multimillionaires? What did I just talk about?
The government. I mean, regulations holding back businesses and society.
Exactly. And we're going through phase 1 right now with Elon and Vivek to remove a lot of those regulations. But that's what's holding us back. What's holding back the health field?
FDA.
Right? And just
FDA
in general,
regulations,
right?
litigation.
The government is on your back. It's on your back. It's blocking progress, rapid, necessary progress. In order to really throw a flying tackle on these fatal diseases, these chronic diseases like cancer, heart disease, and even aging, in order to throw a flying tackle on them, you need to free the geniuses of society. You need to remove the government off their back. They're just retarding progress, and they've always done that. Why? For their own little payoffs, for their own little wealth. A politician goes into government worth, say, $50,000 or $100,000. They leave government worth, what's Nancy Pelosi worth? $200 million?
Yeah, 200 million.
And then her husband. Yeah, this is
It's disgusting.
It's
horrible.
absolutely disgusting. In fact, the government is, I'm going to say it right now because it's never been said before. The government is a cult. Do you know what I mean by that?
A cult.
A cult. The government is a cult. Our ruling class is a cult.
Our government's a cult?
Yes, it is, and here's why. Let's use our thinking tools, and let's pull together some words that give us our thinking tools on how to view these things that we've been blinded to because of illusions. A cult is controlling people's lives who are in that cult through manipulating their minds.
Okay.
What did I just describe, Wallace?
A cult.
And did I not describe our ruling class?
You described the government.
Have
Every
our
government.
lives not been controlled since we were little children in school? In our schools, the Department of Education.
Propaganda.
Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
From children to adulthoods to senior citizens, our lives are controlled by the ruling class, and they do that through manipulating our minds. How do they manipulate our minds? Through illusions. Illusions out there. I can start cutting through those illusions. We're going to see this now with Elon and Vivek cutting the necessary bureaucracies, right?
Yes.
We need this. We need that. Remember Javier Milei in Argentina? Afuera. I hope I'm saying that right.
Afuera.
Okay. Thank you. Say that again.
Afuera.
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 Okay. I won't attempt to do that again, but yeah,
that was beautiful. When I saw that gave me chills.
Didn't it?
Afuera.
Yeah.
Department of this. Afuera.
And
Afuera.
imagine the people watching that.
Yeah.
They're thinking, you can't do that because their mind has
Yeah.
been polluted with illusions for their entire lives because they're in a cult. The cult is the ruling class.
So, yeah, people's entire lives, they feel like they need the government. They need those things to survive.
Yes.
And so because they're manipulated by the government.
And that's why they so fervently, during elections, get so caught up into it. I need this person to win. I need that person to win. Because they're caught up in their false belief that they need the government. And they don't. It's a cult. It's a cult, Wallace. They don't need it. But they have to be deprogrammed from that belief.
They're brainwashed by the
They're
government.
brainwashed. And who's benefiting? See, I didn't tell you the final definition of a cult. It's all done controlling the lives of the people in the cult through manipulating their minds for the benefit of the leaders.
Wow.
So who benefits from all of this?
All your politicians.
Right. They come in with $100,000. They leave with $200 million.
Wow.
And then when they leave, this is another thing that's going to be eliminated with this administration. They leave through a revolving door and get a really cushy, high-paying job for some company that they did favors for during their time in government. And that's all on our backs. It's from our wallets. Isn't it time to put an end to this? See, before Vivek and Elon, I'm just going to say they're going to become heroes. People don't know that yet. A lot of people hate Elon. A lot of people hate Vivek.
Because they're manipulated, like you said, by the cult of the ruling.
Exactly. Their minds are manipulated. They're full of pollution, of illusions. So they believe this, but let's let the actions take place. Let's see what happens now over the next 4 years. And as I'm saying, this is laying the groundwork for immortalis. Because once the people see what good that does to their wallet, to their health, and the third big one is to their safety. Because crime is going to greatly reduce. Why? First, what is the number one cause of crime? The number one.
Need? Like, it's easy? Or, oh, money. Okay.
Absolutely. So if people are getting wealthier and wealthier, there's less and less motivation to commit crime for money.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of
I
other
see.
forms of crime as well, but
Yeah,
that's
like
the big
violent
one.
crime and
There's
stuff
violent
like that.
crime, absolutely. But a lot of this is driven by money.
Right.
And you remove or you reduce the money factor. We're not going to reduce it in America, under a ruling class, even a ruling class that's doing a great job with reducing the size of government. Remember, that's phase one.
Yeah.
Phase two is immortalis. And in immortalis, where everyone it lives like a multimillionaire, everyone is living 20, 30 years longer than anywhere else in the world.
And living like a multimillionaire, just as an example, would that mean like, now your dollar, instead of buying you, like now it could buy you 100 times more than what it could buy you now.
Yes, I mean, like I said, think of that computer analogy that I used, or that computer example. That's going to happen across in all areas of life. So with a great technological revolution. So people are going to be wealthy. So remember I told you earlier, so they're going to voluntarily tithe 10% of their income to protection to protect us, right? That's the only valid purpose of government. And by the way, everyone knows that. That's the way our country was started. But why do we lose sight of that? Illusions, pollution illusions, right up here in our minds. By whom? By the cult leaders, right? Who are the cult leaders?
Politicians.
Politicians and those regulatory bureaucrats. They're the cult. They're filling our minds with illusions, and people are caught up emotionally in these illusions. And so it's going to take a while to, when you remove someone from a cult, it takes a while to, what do they call it, deprogram their minds?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, some psychological term.
Unbrainwash.
Yeah, and that's what this next 4 years is going to go a long ways in helping that.
Right.
But it's only phase one. You still have a ruling class.
Mm-hmm.
You still have a cult. You still have politicians getting wealthy off of us. But in immortalis, that doesn't exist. So guess what else doesn't exist? Not only does poverty not exist, not only does chronic illness and disease and eventually death exist. Well, eventually death will be removed, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But crime will no longer exist. Crime will only exist in theory very quickly in immortalis because, first of all, the number one cause of crime is gone. That's the need for money.
The motivation, the demand
That's right.
for money.
That's
because
gone.
They're like needy, they want it, and so
Yeah.
okay.
That's gone. And the other thing is this. The only purpose of government, or the service we'll call government, is to protect the individual, which, by the way, you have no more problems with racism or minority this, minority that, because the smallest of all minorities is the individual, and the Prime Law specifically protects the individual. So everyone is protected and protected equally.
Wow.
Okay. So now think about this. If that's the number one purpose, if that's the only purpose of government, then any crime that is committed will be so swiftly dealt with and so efficiently and effectively that no one will even dare to try.
Right.
So and their motivation is gone as well. So as far as a monetary, there's no motivation, and they want to pay their 10% tithe, and they don't want to rob or steal or commit crime or try to sell drugs or any of that stuff because it's just there's no need to. They're wealthy, and the punishment will be so swift and so objective that crime will just become a theory. It won't even exist in immortalis.
That's fascinating.
So can you see how I am excited about Elon and Vivek? Simply because they set the stage. They're staging for what's going to come in immortalis. We have a 10-year plan to advance from a digital country to a land-based country. And there's a very good possibility of pulling this off. I'll just tell you some reasons why. First of all, as I said before, a land-based dynamic would immediately become the medical mecca of the world, because medical companies and research and development would just all immigrate to Immortalis to get the government off their back so they can do their research and pursue their gift to the world. The geniuses of society bring their gift, their purpose to the world, free of all the regulations and weight of the government. It's just free to move at the speed that's necessary to do things in sufficient time, okay, to get rid of chronic fatal diseases very quickly. Now here's an example of powerful people that can come on board. If you Google billionaires who want to live forever, there's a lot of them, and they're very well-known people. Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Mark Zuckerberg,
Ellison.
Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison,
Brian Johnson.
Sorry, this thing keeps slipping down. So those people, when the illusion pollution starts leaving their brains,
Illusion pollution.
right, and as they start getting deprogrammed, even those guys are just full of illusions, and they're living in a world of illusions, and they're playing the game. But when they see what's possible, the greatest thing, what do you think the greatest thing Jeff Bezos wants? He wants to cure death.
Right.
More than anything else.
He said the number one thing he wants to be known for when he was interviewed is, I want to be known as the oldest person alive. Meaning
There you go.
he doesn't die.
So his yachts, Monaco, all that pales in comparison to curing aging, curing death. So once the illusion pollution is leaving, he's getting deprogrammed from his brainwashing, he's going to see the logic in what I'm talking about here, about a country that is purely free. We've never experienced capitalism. Everyone says, oh, we've had capitalism in America. No, we've never had it because we've always had an initiatory force in the ruling class. It was less so in early America, which made it progress very rapidly, but it's always existed in the ruling class, initiatory force. In any ruling class ever in the history of our on planet Earth, there's always been the existence of initiatory force. So we've never had pure capitalism. Pure capitalism is removal. It's just removal.
Pure freedom.
Exactly. And we've never had that. Now, when we have that, with the government off our backs, and we will have that in Immortalis, then we can achieve biological immortality within our lifetime. We won't get it within Jeff Bezos' lifetime the way America, Europe, or Asia is set up now with all the regulations and the bureaucratic retardation of any progress. We're not going to get that within their lifetime. So Larry Ellison, well, the greatest thing he wants in life is to live forever. Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Sergey Brin, Larry Page, and there's a lot of them. So they will wake up to what is. That's what I always say. I have a gift of cutting through to what is. It's because of my childhood and my upbringing, thanks to my father and the whole chain of philosophers, Aristotelian philosophers, all the way back to Aristotle. That's how I was raised as a child, so I can see through the illusions. That's my superpower to what is. When these billionaires start waking up to what is, they're going to join Immortalis. They're going to get on board, and with their influence, their power, and their money, we can get territory, and we will have the influence to work towards sovereignty. Once that happens, we become the medical mecca of the world. The great brain drain happens. The geniuses of society move to Immortalis, and it's all
So they could be free.
the lid's lifted off of society.
Mm-hmm.
So we just will get the first 1/100th of a taste of this over the next 4 years, thanks to Elon and Vivek. But after that, multiply whatever you see in 4 years 100, 1,000 times, and that's Immortalis. And then I want all of you who are viewing this to join Immortalis. Go to joinimmortalis.com.
All right. Well, I'll see you there then.
All right. Are you a member?
Of course.
You're a founding member.
That's right.
All right.